Welcome to another episode of the House Huddle Podcast. Here are your hosts, Rob Schwartz and Justin Onayemi, two Bears fans who decided talking into a microphone was better than shouting at their television.
Welcome in, Hallis Huddlers.
Huddle up!
All right, this is episode 78 of the Hallis Huddle Podcast. As always, I'm Rob Schwartz with Bear Goggles On. With me, as always, is Justin Onayemi. And although it didn't say it in the intro, Bob Weiss is back.
Happy to be back.
Happy St. Patrick's Day, guys.
Happy St. Patrick's Day. We had a lot of big stuff we wanted to talk about, so we're like, we probably should get a third voice in on this.
Yes.
Always happy to be here.
I think everyone knows by now I'm the most emotional one out of the three of us, so I always like having an extra voice of reason. Like
I needed an extra spotter.
Yeah.
It'll be fun. A lot happened.
I don't have any Rob's rants planned, but they might just happen. Like
I think
planned, but you know.
Impromptu.
So episode 78, you actually had somebody for this that I don't know how I didn't think of this number. But.
So Keith Van Horn,
yeah,
offensive lineman, I want to say left tackle, might have been a right tackle, but I remember him from the early 90s, but we looked it up. He played all the way back from 81 through, I think, 93.
Yeah.
So
he was on
huge, man.
Super Bowl
Huge.
team.
I think he was like 6'7", humongous. But then I'm trying to wonder if, like, in that era, if he just wasn't quite as big as I'm remembering. And, like, I don't know. So I'll look that up later. But, yeah, number 78. So
we're trucking along. We're almost to 100.
yeah, there you go. And then what are we going to do? Go back and start at 1.
Yeah, we just won't.
We just lost a player, though, that we could name for number one. So
yeah, this guy right here. Sorry, guys.
Oh, wow.
He's gone.
Oh, man, that was
gone.
not for effect. Jeez.
Okay.
Yeah.
How do you want to do this?
I mean, I'm a little heartbroken in the sense that I don't know how to do this. That's the thing. Like, I want to stay on script. I want to stay on like track, but at the same time, I know my emotions are going to get the best of me. Clearly, I was the one that was the most like ready to keep Justin Fields and trade back from number 1. At the same time, I've come along from the last, I don't know, month and a half or so and have wrapped my head around the fact that, look, they're going with Caleb Williams. It was pretty obvious. But the trade that they got for him has sent me down this like emotional spiral. Like my wife yesterday was like, why are you so crabby? I'm like, I don't want to talk about it. She's like, no, what's going on? I'm like, Justin Fields was traded to the Steelers for less than almost every other quarterback that was traded this
Basically
offseason.
nothing. A future
Yeah,
sixth round pick is essentially
So
nothing.
I'll
Yes.
let you guys talk a whole lot because it does not bother me that much, to be honest. Like I can rationalize it very easily.
Sure. I mean,
See,
okay.
I do try to be the reasonable person. I'm having a hard time justifying it from the Bears' perspective. Like, you know,
Yeah.
aren't you?
Okay, so
Before you do this, I am on record of saying this is the worst move that Ryan Poles has made in his Chicago Bears tenure. The worst move.
I think that's a terrible take.
Way worse than
I think
Chase
it's
Claypool.
maybe too
I think that's
early
a
to say
terrible
that,
take.
because we have the hindsight on Chase Claypool to know how terrible
I get it.
that was.
But you're talking a top 25 quarterback that was ascending, whether you want to like say he wasn't good enough. And I get like his stats weren't there for passing, but he was ascending. He had progressed from 2021 to 2022 to 2023. His passing stats had progressed. He's better than a lot of the other quarterbacks who are now going to be starting or at least
You
competing
just said
to
the
start.
reason why it's not as bad as you're making it seem. Top 25, there are 32 teams. Top 25 is not that fantastic. And you just said year 1, year 2, year 3. Now, I do have a problem with like how it all went down, but I don't want to be a hypocrite. So I'm going to say that I understand it. And my thing is when they say stuff like it's a business, that's not how Ryan Poles handled this. He wanted to do right by Justin Fields.
Hold that.
And with that,
hold that thought. We have the actual quote.
okay, let's read what Ryan Poles' words were.
And I'll let you read it.
I'm saying before that, though. I'm saying before the trade. He said, do right by him.
At the combine.
Yes.
Yes.
So here's my point. If he had made a deal, because we had talked about this, like you said, this is not like it snuck up on us. We didn't just wake up and like Fields was traded. No, we knew this was coming. If he had traded Fields before free agency, before Kirk Cousins signs with Atlanta, because that was kind of like removed one of the teams that you thought might want Fields as a starter.
And I don't think people realized that Russell Wilson was going to get let go.
So a lot of those dominoes
The
happening.
team would want him
Right.
after he got let go.
But I'm saying Poles could have even driven the market a lot more if he had done that earlier and not cared about doing right by Justin Fields. And instead, he held on. A lot of dominoes fell. Clearly, teams had already set themselves up with who they believe was their starter. And so now you're getting a backup quarterback is really what they traded for. And when you said he's improved in year 1, in year 2, in year 3, that means he's going into his 4th year. And you now have to make a decision on a 5th-year option to pay him a whole lot more money. So I know we're going to talk later about some other comparable picks. Kenny Pickett is a different situation. You get more years of cheap control on Kenny Pickett as a backup than you do on Justin Fields as a backup.
All right.
So the price went way down.
I think Kenny Pickett's got one more year than Justin Fields. It's not like years. It's one more year of cheap control than Justin Fields. And Kenny Pickett, I don't think has established himself as a quarterback. If he's your quarterback going into Sunday, I don't think you feel like you can win a game. If you have an adequate roster, around the quarterback, adequate coaching, like you'd rather have Justin Fields and Kenny Pickett be your starting quarterback.
And
that's how I feel. That's how you feel. That's not what the market was bearing.
Would he have even been traded if he wasn't throwing a fit?
Who?
Kenny Pickett, right? Like he threw a fit. Like he was pissed off the fact that he was going to be behind Russell Wilson.
This episode is already isn't it weird that like the Steelers kind of threw Kenny Pickett under the bus on his way out, and then like Ryan Poles, you can put the quote like Ryan Poles said, you know what, this trade isn't about what's best for the Bears, it's about what's best for Justin Fields.
Yeah. Okay.
And on his way out of town, like it's kind of.
Let's look at the quote here, and then
I didn't fully finish my point, but
after that, I'm gonna throw up the other quarterback trades because I think we've
so
touched
let me
on
read
it
what
enough.
Poles said. Let's talk about the other trades in comparison to this one. All right. So this is a quote from Ryan Poles. We have engaged in multiple trade conversations in recent weeks and believe trading Justin at this time to Pittsburgh is what is best for both Justin and the Bears, said General Manager Ryan Poles. Today, we spoke to Justin to inform him of the trade and the rationale behind it for us as a club. We want to thank him for his tireless dedication, leadership, and all he poured into our franchise and community the last 3 years and wish him the best towards a long and successful NFL career. So he wanted to do right by Fields, and I think he did. Fields is in a good situation other than the fact that he's not projected right now to be the starter, but he's with a good team.
You put it in our group text. Ian Rappaport had reported, I think it was 4 or 5 other teams that were actually involved, and Justin Fields' team said that they would prefer to go to Pittsburgh. They did do right by Justin Fields, and that could go a long way with a locker room that was clearly supporting Justin
you
Fields.
saw some of those tweets from the players coming out afterwards, and it's just
but that's why I think it's a ridiculous take that people were starting to put out there of draft Caleb Williams, keep Justin Fields, use him as Taysom Hill, all that nonsense. To me, that was going to be a disaster. Like, this is already a team that you're trying to build towards a playoff run. We have our feelings about Eberflus, but I don't know that you want to put a rookie who people say already has certain things about him.
I agree with you entirely. I don't think leaving Justin Fields as a backup was a tenable solution. However,
were they going to cut him?
That there had to have been a way to get more than a future 6th round pick for Justin Fields.
Here's my
thing.
A sixth round pick is nothing.
Okay, but hold on. This is why I said I'm not going to be a hypocrite, though.
Hand those out during the draft.
I know. This is why I was saying I'm not going to be a hypocrite, though. When he said, I want to do right by Justin Fields, now you removed the whole this is a business side of the game. Because if you just say this is a business, I'm trading you for the best return I can get for this team which I don't think would have been a second rounder, by the way.
No, well, no.
Early on, had he done it,
I
maybe
was
you get a
hoping that
third,
the
maybe you get
package
a.
was going to be like a current third or fourth plus a contingent pick in the next draft that might turn into a second based on playing.
So that's
kind of where my head was at.
Yeah.
I think you get that if you had been the first move of the offseason, a team's getting him as their starter, and you do all that, and you don't care. You just want the return. When he said, I want to do right by him, and he did follow up on his word there, I think too often in sports, we aren't really concerned about the individual. And Justin Fields, by all accounts, was a great teammate, great individual, all that stuff. And so Poles did him a solid by putting him in a good situation. Is that return great? Obviously not. We hope he does 51%, 70% of the snaps, and you get a fourth. Now it's a little more.
It's still a future fourth, which is a fifth or, whatever.
Exactly.
Like, it's still it's.
I mean, it sounds better saying future fourth than it does future sixth, but the chances of that happening seem very slim unless.
But the timing
Russell
of it.
Wilson gets hurt.
So the timing of this, all the other teams had made their decisions. And so at that point, I didn't want to see a situation where you're drafting Caleb Williams and keeping Justin Fields. So once you're at that point, now are you cutting him and getting literally nothing? Because then getting a sixth as opposed to cutting him for nothing is still better. And I'm not saying it's good, but I'm saying they went about this in a way where it no longer was going to be get the most you can get.
I understand that. And I guess if you're going to rationalize it, that's the way you have to rationalize it, where it was no longer. That's why I tried. It wasn't about what's best for the Bears anymore.
It was
what was best for Justin Fields at that point. And that's fine, but it's just.
My concern, though, is, as I was the one that said, look, this could speak volumes to the rest of the players who have been supporting him in that locker room. But is it also going to set a precedent that, hey, okay, well, DJ Moore, he's a stand-up guy. He's a great player. Next year is the last year of his contract. What if he decides this team's not winning? You got to admit, yes, Caleb Williams is coming into a great situation, but a lot of times rookie quarterbacks don't highly succeed. So to the point where maybe he gets frustrated and he demands a trade. Like, is Ryan Poles going to do right by him?
Poles acquired more.
I think kind of there's a few ways to go with this. One, you're doing right by Justin because he did everything he was ever asked to do. Didn't complain, didn't quit when it got tough. He was everything you want somebody to be.
And Poles inherited.
And then the second part is, I think doing right by Justin is an admission that he got a raw deal here in Chicago. And so we're going to try to give him what he did everything he was supposed to.
Yes,
and got
that's
raw.
true.
Like DJ Moore didn't get a raw deal. Caleb Williams succeed or fail in coming in. He's not getting a raw deal.
No, not at all.
In fact, he's coming into the best situation the quarterback drafted #1 overall has ever walked into. So, I just don't think it's going to be
probably the best position a quarterback in the Bears has ever walked into.
I actually have somebody put this out on Twitter, and I'm curious now what you guys think. There's 4 different scenarios. I bookmarked it. Oh, shoot. I lied. I didn't bookmark it. Never mind. But it was Joe Burrow with T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd and Joe Mixon. And I can't remember who their tight end was, which doesn't sound like that was that bad. I know they didn't have Jamar Chase.
So the weapons are great too, but I'm talking about the top 10 defense as well.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, Cincinnati's defense was bottom of the league.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember what the other ones were off the top of my head. Palmer, TJ Hujmanzada, Ocho Cinco, kind of on both those guys are kind of towards the tail end of their career, I believe, if I remember correctly.
Ocho Cinco still had. Yeah, he had.
With Carson Palmer. You might be thinking about when Andy Dalton got to him.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, 2 sets of Bengals teams.
I know. And people think Cincinnati is some bottom feeder franchise,
right?
But it's like every decade they have a period.
So do we think that? I mean, yes, Caleb Williams is coming to a fantastic situation, but there have been other times where, at least on an offensive standpoint, right, like where things have looked good on paper. In fact,
those 2 that you just mentioned seem to work out okay.
Yes. Yes.
I mean,
yeah.
So
yeah,
I don't know. I'd be curious to know what the other 2 were, but that's why we don't gotta.
No, I'm not going to try to search for it on the show. So
okay.
Yeah. So I do want to go back to Fields and the Steelers a little bit because one, selfishly, I know, Rob, you kind of like Miami. They're kind of your second team. The
Yes.
Steelers have been my adopted second team. So selfishly, I'm very happy that that's where he ended up.
Mhm.
The Steelers seem to like former Chicago Bears players.
I mean, hopefully it works out better than Trubisky. That didn't work out for me either. I made a bet with Nate that Trubisky would make another Pro Bowl.
Oh, nice.
And so I'm like, the Steelers, he's gonna get it. Like, this is it. And then it didn't work out.
It's not
Anyway,
over yet.
That's not what I'm talking about. But I mean, part of the reason I like the Steelers so much has a lot to do with Mike Tomlin. Mike Tomlin just seems like the most just genuine, just like hard-nosed, grinded-out winner. Very similar to Justin Fields, just absolute genuine person. Like, just, and like Russell Wilson seems like the complete exact opposite. Just completely superficial, just, completely just fake in every way. So I feel like at some point, like,
what is interesting though,
they're get 51% of the snaps.
It's just going to be clear that Fields is your leader, and
I think he could win that job.
Just some, veteran holding on, some fake phony that just Tomlin's just like, what are you doing?
So I think Wilson has a bit of an ego as well, and so he's still kind of seen as, and clearly he's much more experienced and been to Super Bowls and all that. So I think they kind of said to him, like, you're our starter. But once they're there and they get to compete, Fields could win that job, or things could happen and Fields could end up in that role. I mean, if this is all ends up being a 4th round pick because of it, and Fields has good success where he goes, that doesn't bother me. I honestly, like,
it does, because I wanted that 2nd round pick, which I know obviously we weren't going to get that. I wanted something more this year.
But getting another 3rd or a 4th gives you ammunition to move up.
Exactly. And you can see what just having a 4th round pick can do for you.
It can get you Keenan Allen,
right?
Yeah.
Like, just having
that's what it did, actually.
Last year when everybody wanted Jalen Carter, we got to what's a future 4th going to do? And so I get it. We're getting a future 4th, and that turned into Keenan Allen.
Right.
It's not nothing. I know it's not nothing. A future 6 is nothing. A future 4th, I know, is not nothing. I get that, but.
I mean, so Justin giving up a 4th, we're going to talk also about giving up a 4th for Keenan Allen. But I do feel like Foles obviously knows so much more of everything when they're making these deals. And this draft is going to be a weird draft because you only are going in with 4 picks now. Yeah. But I feel like he's positioned them, as we just said, for this to be like a very good landing spot for a rookie, in the sense that you got weapons on offense. You got a very solid defense. Now, are they Super Bowl contenders? Probably not. And do you still need to supplement it with other players? Of course. But you only have what you have. And you had to make a move like that for Keenan Allen, and I'm glad they did.
I'm going to touch on 3 things before I forget. So 1, with the draft, they only have 4 picks, but 3 are within the top 75.
There you go.
And all reports are, and I see it by looking at the prospects, is that it kind of falls off at a certain point in this draft.
Like, it's very shallow.
Draft.
Yeah. 150, maybe 180 actual prospects in this draft.
The fact that they have those 4, 2 of them in the top 10, 3 in the top 75, I think they could easily acquire more picks.
I think a strong possibility now. Because at 9, we had talked about going after a big-time receiver. That's not as much of a need when you land Keenan Allen. So really trading back from 9 is a good possibility.
Need on this roster right now.
Yes.
Quarterback.
Right. You're going to address that. You're going to most likely address that.
You'll be one, baby.
What about Ripon? Ripon. So they're going to take a quarterback at 1, we believe, right?
Yeah.
Now, at 9, probably trade back, and hopefully you're going to still pick in the teens or something like that, but acquire more picks in the future, or a future of the draft.
And you could,
and then it's not a deep draft, and you go into next season. I think a much better team than you were last year.
I mean, I get the whole trade down at 9. That's the easiest way to get a few more picks, more capital. But this draft still has blue chip prospects. Maybe, I don't know, you could probably have a better idea of it, but maybe even 10 or 11 actual blue chip prospects, which is different than legit first rounders. And so, like, getting 2 blue chip players is
so
huge.
I have 11 guys who 11. I think are worthy of a top 10 pick.
Okay, so that's exactly the type of classification I'm talking about.
But if you throw in
quarterbacks that people jump up for,
2 quarterbacks that I don't have that high, and I know a lot of people are going to, a lot of people are going to kill me when I say this, but I don't have Jaden Daniels in that top 11.
I guarantee you some NFL teams don't either. Right?
Yeah.
I guarantee you he's that type of
Size.
prospect. Some do and some don't.
And JJ McCarthy is not in that.
I have JJ McCarthy as a blue
So
chip
if those 4 guys go, right?
Yeah.
You could move down like 9 to say 13-ish and still get one of those blue chip type guys.
That's fine. I'm fine, but I'm just saying I would prioritize still getting a blue chip player in the first with that second pick in the first round.
Yeah.
Than just accumulating a mass,
Agreed.
quantity.
No,
I want a second blue chip.
Quality definitely
over
has
quantity.
to
I was more looking at it this way. There are still receiver. I still think is a position they should be drafting, but really there are some edge rushers that look really, really good to slot in on this roster.
Yeah.
A lot of the early picks are offense based. So if you're sitting at 9, not too many defenders have come off the board, and you go from 9 to 12 where Denver is, or I don't know how far back you can go and still keep tabs on hopefully landing one of those guys.
Yeah.
You've acquired more picks, you're set up and you go. So
my other comments, Pittsburgh. I think you'll appreciate this. I get to see Justin Fields with George Pickens. Finally.
Finally the dream duo.
That's what I was asking for how long?
all the way back to the Kyler Gordon pick, I believe. Definitely by the Brisker one.
But what I think is interesting with this situation, whether he gets that 51% or not, and we just look at it from a Justin Fields standpoint and not a Chicago Bears standpoint, he is now behind the guy that most people comped him to, other than they said Fields was bigger, stronger, right? But very similar in Russell Wilson-esque ways. And is he finally going to be able to sit for 3/4 to a full season and hopefully learn where we're seeing a lot of these quarterbacks who get to do that highly succeed?
But that was the other reason I was saying that, like, the clock on his rookie deal comes into play, because like they're not going to be that much in a wait and see situation with him. Because I don't know. They have till May 2nd, I believe, to decide if they're going to give him the 5th-year option. Where do you think they're leaning?
I think it'll depend on the draft.
Okay.
Right?
Steelers are whether they're going to pick. They're not going to pick up the option.
Okay. So
I can't imagine
so if you don't pick it up,
and if he does well, he gets 51%. It goes. They'll just franchise.
Yeah, they'll just franchise
Right.
tag.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah,
That makes sense.
They're not going to pick up.
but my point is they have to make a decision on him already by next season.
Correct.
And if he's a backup, they're not going to get to see too much of him to make that evaluation. And he's in another new system, has to learn an offense. I feel like that's kind of where some of his weakness has been.
Yeah.
And he's been in 2 systems already. Clearly, athletically and things like that, he's off the charts, but it's processing. It's not holding on to the ball too long. How many teams felt comfortable? I don't think the Bears even felt comfortable knowing he'd be coming into a new system, which is another reason I wouldn't want them to have kept him as the backup. You're trying to teach a new system, install it, like you said, to the whole team.
We're not making it sound like he's not capable of learning another system. I think he's
I'm saying
he can handle it. It's just the timing.
Any team taking
just
him
a
on has to
3-step drop
evaluate
and getting
all
the
of
ball
that.
out, no matter what system you're in is it's tough. But I kind of to what your point was before about Atlanta signing Cousins, like when you really think about it, the only teams that would give up some significant capital for this year's draft would be a team that thinks Justin Fields is going to lead them to the playoffs this year. So you look across the league, what rosters were ready for Justin Fields to come in and then compete for the playoffs this year, because it has to be this year. Like Atlanta was one of them, and they brought Cousins in. The Steelers were the other one. They brought Russell Wilson in. Other than those two, what other rosters are really – I mean, Minnesota is kind of in limbo, but, we
wouldn't have wanted to trade in the division, most likely.
Like, what other roster is playoff ready? They can surround Justin Fields with the weapons that he needs, with the defense that he needs, with the stable coaching that he needs
Right.
to make it to the playoffs. So from that respect, it was a limited market. And then, I think, Rob, you do have something.
Throw up those other trades.
Other
I want to speak to
were
that a little bit too.
This off season, like there's other options for teams to get. And there are, I know, we're talking about what grade we put on the quarterbacks in this year's draft, but there are 6 quarterbacks in this draft that project as potential starters in the NFL. So it was just the wrong time for Justin Fields to be available.
How do you want to do this, Rob? Because the one that jumps out to me right away, I don't know if it's the same one that jumps out of you guys.
I mean, I'm going to start at the bottom.
Yeah, Mac Jones, same draft as Fields.
Yes.
That's a 2024 sixth.
Yes.
Okay.
Which is technically
more
valuable.
Yeah. Okay, but it's a 6th round pick is my point.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a 6th round pick, and he's going to be a backup somewhere.
Sure, but
So-
he's
so
also
you
been
think-
better than Mac Jones, in my opinion.
It's
So
not about that. You think a team is?
I think the
yeah.
point of the Ian Rappaport tweet was that those other 4 teams might have been willing to give more, or if there was actually an open bidding war between those teams, they would have got more. But because Fields camp said, you know what, we really just want to go to Pittsburgh, and Poles was like,
Yeah.
okay, that's just what happened. So I mean, I don't want to. I don't think we should be comparing the merits of what Mac Jones got in an open market to what Justin Fields would get in an open market, because at the end of the day, it wasn't fully an open market. It was just
That's not what I'm comparing, though, because the Mac Jones trade happened before the Fields trade,
Correct.
and it was one of the later dominoes to fall. So the market keeps getting worse and worse and worse as guys are coming off. So how was he going to get a whole lot more than that for a guy at that point, even if he is better?
I'll say this is where you and I differ. I was not wanting them to trade him if it was anything less than a 4th this year. And I was willing to take the chance of having both in that locker room and trading him either post-draft, once teams realized they didn't get the rookie quarterback that they wanted, or even waiting until the mid-season trade deadline.
So how do you think that would have worked for the development of the new quarterback you're bringing in? How do you think that would have worked for a coach like Eberflus in terms of managing a locker room that's naturally going to be divided? All of those things. You think that would have been smooth?
Hey, DJ Moore said it. Business is business. You got to just fucking get in there and deal with it. That's how I look at it.
So I think Joseph Fields would have handled it.
I wasn't
just
worried
fine.
as much
I'm
about
not worried
him.
about Joseph Fields. I think the other.
But if you're worried about
you're
Caleb
putting the other
Williams, that's a
players-
problem too.
I agree.
No,
I agree, but
I'm not even saying it from like a mental standpoint. I'm saying it reps, things like that, but I'm also saying the teammates. Like, I hope that when they bring Caleb Williams in, everyone's on board right away and thinks this dude's got some talent. We got a roster that's ready to go. Let's go. And I think that's what they'll say, and I think that's what they'll do.
I think that
But if you leave a guy like Fields still in that locker room, and I'm not saying it's coming from him, it's going to be a division. Then you have the element of the fans, which
That's where the
I
division's
think
going to
that's
come from.
ridiculous.
it's
But
that's
utterly
where the
ridiculous.
division-
And somehow this trade, well, because it's such a polarizing return on the trade has not been like, oh, okay, I guess let's just all come together around.
No.
It's made it worse. It's made it worse.
Yeah, there's still a lot of divisions.
people say a lot of dumb things about Caleb Williams. And then when he goes off and has even – because I still think his floor is a pretty high floor.
I think it can't stress that enough when
Yes.
we're talking about the prospect class that Caleb Williams is in. We're talking about Andrew Luck. We're talking about Joe Burrow. We're talking about Trevor Lawrence. And it's very important to include Trevor Lawrence in that group to remember that he was this elite prospect. And what has Trevor Lawrence done in 3 years in the league? First year, worst quarterback situation a first overall pick has ever gone into. Just Urban Meyer and horrible roster and all that nonsense.
Yep.
Second year, he wins a playoff game.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, third year, he had his team number 1 seed in the conference until he hurt his shoulder and they kind of stumbled through the finish line. This is what we're talking about as a disappointment for this level of prospect.
Right. And all of those fans will feel differently at that point.
Yeah.
But imagine you're carrying both of them. And Williams is playing. I don't know if he starts, if he doesn't, if he learns from Fields, which that I don't know if that was even a good
I mean, I think
idea.
you could do it. I think if you were transparent with the team internally, and I think Ryan Poles has proven that there is no more leaks that it used to be there, thanks Cliff Stein, that you could be transparent with what your plan is and be like, look, Justin, we're trying to trade you, but the situations that we're getting offers for, they're either bad situations for you or they're bad situations for us.
And I think at the end of the day, Poles, again,
I think
he said, I want to do right by Justin Fields. Doing right by
yeah.
Justin Fields wasn't having him as a backup on your team and a divided locker room and a divided fan
I think
base.
Fields would have.
So now he's going
like
to be a
pro.
backup on another team in a potentially divided locker room and not quite same situation because they're
On a team that
but
consistently
I guarantee you
wins.
there's going to be some guys who are pro Russ and some guys who are pro Justin.
He put him in as good of a
already-
position as he could put him in,
I
leaving the
already
Bears.
stated my opinion that I think by the end of the season,
Fields
there's
will
not
be-
going to be any pro
Right.
Russ.
Yeah,
It's going to be
Fields
all
will own that
Fields.
locker room.
But it's different though because they can literally just discard Russell Wilson with absolutely no repercussions. Whereas Caleb Williams is coming in #1 overall pick. You've shaped your entire roster. You've shaped your entire plan like for this kid coming in. And kind of what you're saying before, I don't think the veterans on this team are going to like just they're going to rally around Caleb Williams in terms of, yes, this is our leader on Sundays, but Caleb Williams is still going to have to prove himself.
Of course.
He's not just going to be like, oh, I made some nice, like, he's going to have to prove himself and earn that spot, but that will be easier to do without Fields in that.
Let's just say if it was me, or if they had gotten what Kenny Pickett returned.
They didn't have draft capital to throw into the pick.
I mean, they had a 4th rounder. They could have thrown Justin Fields in a 4th to get another 3rd and 2 5ths or 2 7ths. Like that could have happened.
You would have loved it. 2 7ths.
I wouldn't have
2
loved it.
7ths.
No, but you're getting a
wow.
3rd.
2 7ths.
You're moving up into the
yes,
draft.
but you had to give a pick.
And
now you have 4 in
and
the
turn
top
it into a
100.
4th and 2 7ths.
I'm just saying that would have been much better than a future 6th round.
And I told you why Kenny Pickett's not a good comparison, though. 2 years of control compared to 1 does make a difference to the team that's acquiring the player.
Also a shitty player.
Okay. I think we are overvaluing Fields. That's another part of this.
I think I'm valuing him correctly and you are undervaluing him.
I'm not even saying you and I have different evaluations of him. I'm saying there's always been, I mean, all the way from your LaShawn McCoys, who basically say he's not even a quarterback. I don't know where he actually, if you took all 32 GMs, or actually 31, don't include polls. You take the other 31 GMs, you take the other 31 pro scouting teams. Where do they place Fields? And when you said top 25, like, that's not that much of an endorsement, in my opinion.
No, and I was willing to go 20, but I was afraid to put that out there because the stats don't
when I
back
think
that up.
those quarterback tiers for our, but like, that's fine. Number 25, but like number 26 is Desmond Ridder. Number 27 is these guys who like are pretty sure they can't play. Like Justin Fields is at least like proven that he can play. He should be a starting quarterback. The 25th best quarterback in the NFL should be starting somewhere. Like it's not nothing. That's.
But maybe to Justin's point, maybe their plan is for him to get to that point. And you said it too. This year,
they don't have that much invested in Russell Wilson.
They don't have much invested in either of them. If
right?
Being honest.
Exactly.
That's what, like, so I kind of made this joke in our text thread, but like I don't know how much they're paying Russell Wilson, like
$1.2 million,
$1.2 million, right?
And Justin Fields is like 2.9.
Let's just say the first conversation Ryan Poles has with the Steelers is, I want a second this year, and then I want a conditional second next year. And Steelers is like, we'll get back to you. Hang up the phone. All right, guys, here's what we're gonna do. We're going to sign Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to make it look like he's our starter, and then we're just going to give him a future 6th, and we're going to get Justin Fields, and then they're just going to cut Russell Wilson next week.
Let's take a break. But before we do, I just wanted to point this out. So Omar Khan is the GM of the Pittsburgh Steelers, and he was there in 2022 also. He was a candidate to take the Bears job before they hired Ryan Poles. In the last 2 years, Pittsburgh has ended up with Joey Porter and Justin Fields for Chase Claypool and a 6th round pick in 2025. When you put it that way, Omar Khan wins.
I would have had it would have been a very weird episode if we were talking about them cutting Justin Fields for nothing. Because I still think that is better than
I don't think that would
running him back as your backup. I think cutting him would have been better.
A future 6th round pick is essentially nothing.
Cutting him is nothing.
Right.
And it would have okay. So
all right. I'm gonna get the last word in here just because I like to. So again, and this is probably gonna be the title of our episode, but Ryan Poles, again, Justin and Bob don't agree. In my opinion, worst move that he's made since he's been a general manager. And to be honest, that's not saying that he's bad, right? It's just that's to me the worst move. I understood the process of the Chase Claypool trade. I get he's doing right by Justin Fields, but from a Chicago Bears standpoint, it is the worst move that he's made. Enjoy these ads.
And we are back. This Justin has not been traded. So here I am. We obviously
never
talked
happen.
the first half.
You'll
we
have
talked
to
about.
resign first.
I hope you guys can get more than a sixth for me though.
Until
future
wait.
six. Future six.
Wait,
A future
until
sixth.
I get my island.
That's right. That's right. So we talked pretty much the whole first half just about the Justin Fields trade, and there's been a heck of a lot more than that going on. It's hard to believe it's only been a week.
I know what happened this week. Like,
Yeah.
free agency was pretty crazy, and
Right.
then the trade market was crazy, and then like this Justin Fields thing just.
So I think Courtney Cronin did like a quick timeline on Twitter, and it started with Monday. The news was that they were going to stop looking at Arlington Heights
Right.
and
That's
put
how
$2
it
million
started.
$2 billion.
$2 billion. Sorry.
Don't tell taxpayers $2 million.
$2 billion into a public stadium in Chicago. That was Monday.
What was
DeAndre Swift was Monday, right?
Yeah, that was the first. DeAndre Swift.
Yep,
was the
DeAndre
first
Swift
signing.
was Monday.
Yeah, which was kind of a shock.
And they didn't tamper.
Shock. Yeah, they didn't tamper, but everyone else did.
Well, they didn't
But-
tamper more than the legal tamper
Yeah.
that you're allowed.
No, did you hear that? Like the Saquon
Well,
stuff
Kirk
went all the
Saquon
way back to last
and Atlanta.
year.
Oh, see, but Kirk Cousins in his like press conference was saying all these things that were so damning.
Yeah, didn't they like look at buying a house before it was even like?
He was just rattling off all these things about people reaching out and blah blah.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well,
Yeah.
guilty.
Well, he's not.
No, I'm saying no,
Yeah.
we don't need to investigate this
Right.
one.
So that means, wait, will the Bears get the 8th pick in the draft?
I heard that they haven't done as much as what Miami did or
Okay.
whatever. So I don't know.
Kirk Cousins isn't Tom Brady.
But, it ended obviously with the Fields trade. And we talked for half an hour at the beginning of this episode about how devastating that was in terms of a lack of return.
Yes.
But if you look at the rest of what they did over this week,
Yeah.
I think we should talk about that and
Yeah,
what position it
absolutely,
puts the
because
team in.
it's- Yeah.
So where do you want to
Wanna take
start?
First crack on that one, Rob.
Yeah. Well, okay. DeAndre Swift is an upgrade in my opinion.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Like
Upgrade.
Young
Yes.
free agent.
And when the contract first came out, I was like, oh, that's kind of more than I thought. And then you saw what those other running
Tony
backs were
Pollard.
getting. Tony Pollard's
Yeah.
contract, even Barkley's contract was
over 12.
over 12, and it's like, oh,
Mhm.
it's a pretty good deal.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah,
And he'll be part of a room, because we still like Roshan. We
Correct.
still like
Still
Herbert.
I mean,
Right.
that's
He's
a
gonna be the-
fantastic.
Best receiver.
He's
in
a
my-
good pass catcher. Waldron likes to throw to his backs.
Yeah. I mean, him and Khalil Herbert are a little similar. So, like, that could be, but Herbert's on the last year of his deal. So, I mean, he could be just out the door next year. I still am a little concerned about who's going to pass block because none of them. Roshan was like the best
Roshan,
out of
yeah.
the group,
Yeah.
and he struggled last year as a rookie. Which
I
most running backs do.
thought I heard Swift was decent in pass blocking.
I heard the opposite. I
Really?
heard he's just,
I was kind of on Rob's side with that.
Really? I know he's a little smaller,
yeah, they're both him and
but
Herbert are 5'9", 5'10".
I thought he was 6 foot, but like a little
Mm-mm.
slider.
Yeah,
okay.
no, he's small.
No, it's the opposite. He's shorter, but
but
like
bulky.
No, he's
Yeah.
stocky, but
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, but he's fast. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, he's one of
He's
those guys that,
explosive.
like, if you go back
you
to
look at his
Detroit,
Yeah.
like, this is where people are like, oh, well, he barely got over 1,000 yards behind the great Philadelphia offensive line. I think he only ended up with like 4 touchdowns or something. Well, first of all, how many touchdowns did he
Yeah.
lose to the tush
Jalen
push?
Hurts gets all the touchdowns,
Right?
so I don't want to hear that
Yeah.
either. And he averaged 4.7,
Yes.
4.8 yards per carry. Like,
And this isn't the Miles Sanders situation
Yeah.
where he left and went to Carolina and just stunk.
right.
He was good, and he was I
He had
shouldn't
his
say
best
good.
year.
He was efficient in Detroit.
Yeah, like
Yes.
that's the
Oh, yeah.
thing that stood out to me when you signed him. Like, oh, I don't know that much about DeAndre. So if you look at it, it's efficiency with him. He's very, very efficient. He makes the most out of all of his touches.
The one thing that still stands out to me, though, his rookie year, dropped a touchdown to win for Detroit to beat Chicago.
Yeah, I do remember that.
He knew he'd be a Bear someday.
that's
so.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I
that was a
remember
big
that.
signing.
Yeah. Big sign. So I mean, I don't know we have to do this for every position, but I know that we had running back as a 2. When
Yeah.
We did like, do we think that just that move brings
Yes.
running back to a 4? I mean,
Yeah.
we're set in running
Yeah,
back.
We're set there. Yep.
We're
Yeah.
set. Center has still not been addressed enough, in my opinion.
It's
Uh,
still
It's been-
probably a 2. I think we're going from a 1
it's
to
been
a
addressed.
2.
yes,
Uh,
1 to a 2. They have a starting.
Yeah.
Yeah. A
Not-
solid
maybe-
starter.
maybe
They have a
2.5.
center who was
Yeah.
an
It was the guy you
actual
wanted in
center.
free
So,
agent
yeah, he was
episode.
the guy that I wanted because he had
Yes.
experience at center. He had experience at guard. He wasn't going to command a contract that like cemented him as the center. So you still had the freedom to go draft somebody.
So him and a draft pick.
But
would
I
be-
do think you can very reasonably upgrade from him at the
Yes.
same time. right? So it's like,
But with only 4 picks, they're probably not going to address that
address
position.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Um,
We're talking about Coleman Shelton, though, by the way.
Yeah,
sorry.
Yeah. So they didn't make as big of a splash there as we maybe would have wanted, and they've dwindled their picks down to the point where it'd be hard to imagine spending anywhere near a high pick on a center.
Right.
But we kept kind of saying, like, where's some of the money? Where's some of the money? Where's some of the money?
Yes. Every time.
Then you trade for Keenan Allen.
Yeah, which was
you need money for a move like that.
Yeah.
So
I mean, we just kind of talked about it in our text thread. We'd make all these moves. The free agency with the contract would come out. We realized there was a lower cap hit in the first year of the deal than later on. So, like, what are they saving their money for? What are they saving their money for? And then finally, this drops.
You have 2 wide receiver ones on your. You went from a 1 to was 4 our highest? Honestly, I'd put it a 5 if that's the case.
No, it's still a 3.6.
3.5.
Like, look,
the depth.
There's no depth.
Well, right
there.
Right. They need to. They got Dante Pettis. Let's not forget that one, guys.
I didn't see that.
They got Dante
Pettis.
Pettis.
They signed Dante Pettis. They brought him in.
All right.
They brought him in
for a 5.
and everything.
Well, I just think now they realize the draft's going to be hard to negotiate.
Here's the thing, real quick. So,
Yeah.
6-time Pro Bowler. The guy is like, I know he's 32, but he just doesn't quit. And I know he only played 11 games last year, but like
13.
Oh, I'm sorry, 13 games last year. He's just
Look at not only look at those stats, but if
he was on track for his best year last year. I had him in fantasy, and then I lost him, and then I lost the league.
It's also important, like a lot of injury concerns with him, but he said in his press conference that if they were
fighting something,
he would have.
It was like a heel bruise or something.
So basically, they were just like, Keenan, whatever.
So his stats are incredible last season, but if you were to, and you can't do it now, so if you're listening to this, go ahead and look this up on your own. Check out his stats against our division. He had a monster game against the Vikings. Monster game against Detroit.
He did have a monster game.
Yes, 18 catches or something.
Like that. Yeah.
And as soon as Keenan Allen went through, I saw Detroit signed a corner. They're like, oh, crap. We better get another corner.
What I love about him, his catch percentage is almost 70% for his career, and he's played, 12 seasons? Like, I mean, it's insane. To me, he's kind of like a slightly less superstar version of Mike Evans. Like,
I think they're very comparable.
He's got more injury history, I think, is the only issue. But he's also had weird injuries. Like, I remember, like, his spleen, like, that wasn't like an ACL or something like that.
Right.
Like,
it's not something that
he took a bad hit.
Right.
Like, that was nothing that was going to be a concern going on forward in his career.
5 seasons with 100+ catches, and then you throw in one at 97. So, I mean, that's damn near 100 as well.
You know what's fantastic about these two? And I know it doesn't say in these stats. He is really, really good against zone coverage, and DJ Moore is really, really good against man coverage. So having those two together is going to be a great compliment.
Yes,
sure.
I mean, he has flexibility. He can run routes out of the slot. He can be on the outside. Like, it's going to be trouble for defenses, assuming they're healthy. And I'm curious to see how they're going to get utilized in a brand new system that we get to see Waldron install. So, I mean, Waldron must be overjoyed. We still have his stats up there, but I think the Everett signing was also pretty big.
Another Charger.
Yeah, another Charger. I know, we talked about maybe Fant coming in to kind of be that move tight end or the U tight end, right? Yeah. But I think Everett serves the same role, probably a lot cheaper. Fant hasn't signed yet, right?
He re-signed with Seattle.
Oh, he did?
Yeah, and for more money.
What did he get? Like, based on the contract, I'm assuming he's going to get somewhere between 11 and 13.
I think it is around 11 or 12.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then Everett was 7.5, 8. So you get the same
Bargain.
role, a guy who's, I've just always liked him. Again, a lot almost like Swift in some ways. He just seems very efficient. He's not catching 80 balls a year. It's only 35, but it's
400 some yards,
touchdowns. It's yards after catch. Like, he's good player.
Yeah, I think again another guy who's going to complement Cole Kmet. Right, Cole Kmet's not going to have to try to play both positions because he's really an inline tight end who can receive. For fantasy players out there, though, his stats might drop a little bit. Just putting that out there.
I mean, Waldron seems to
love
the
his tight ends.
He does.
Yeah,
he does.
Those tight ends in Seattle, they're always not good, but
Yeah.
in terms of starting week.
Yeah,
to
what was
week,
the other guys?
well, you always
Will
wanna-
Disley?
Yeah, you want to stream that Seattle tight end because they might get a touchdown.
Right.
Week,
Yeah.
Daily fantasy sports players out there.
We skipped one as well. Signing Jaylon Johnson.
Oh yes, that's
Yeah.
huge.
Or
was-
did
that
we
was
get to
big.
talk about that last time? Had he already signed?
No.
Oh no, they had
No,
franchised
they
him.
had franchise
But
tagged him.
quickly
The-
converted
They
that
franchise
into a-
tagged him on Sunday, and then they signed him on Tuesday.
And again, this was one of those things
Right.
where the contract, like his cap hit, if he were franchised, the cap hit would have been whatever, same as 19. But
19.5.
since they did the extension, they only put
13.
13. So it's like, ooh, there's
Yeah.
$6 million they're saving. What are they saving it for? What
There
are they
you go.
saving it for?
So here's the thing.
Turned out to be Keenan Allen.
When it comes to the cap, they're pretty much out of cap space. I know if you go on the like Spot Track or
Yeah.
over the cap, it'll show 35 million, but you also have to account for 14 million just for the draft.
They don't have that many picks anymore.
It doesn't matter when
I
you
know,
have
I know.
When it's-
two
But it's the
picks in
number
the
one.
top 10.
I know.
Right?
and
I know.
one is the quarterback. Like,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's gonna gobble that up.
And then you assume
Wiggle
he's
room
going
during
to
the
roll
season.
some over, right?
Yep.
5 to 10 million. So I think they're right around 10 million ish.
Right. And there's still some veteran minimum contracts.
That's
get
what
to
you're gonna see.
53 that they have. So I mean, all veteran minimum, that's still another 3 or 4 million. So when you're talking about
Right.
Yeah.
taking
I'm
a
just
piece of
saying-
the pie. So yeah, they're done from anything significant.
Yeah, the
So-
defensive end
Yeah.
position is clearly not on the table anymore.
Now I don't think
I think that there is a reserve chunk of like 5 or 6 million a year that they could still spend on a veteran defensive end.
Okay.
I think there's like about
Yes.
that much room in there.
and there's ways to
Oh,
And
you
like,
can
move the cap
restructure
around
guys
too,
and
yeah.
finagle
you structure
things. Yeah.
Keenan Allen, you can get another 10 million this year.
Yeah.
Right.
You talked about before we did our episode. Restructure
DeMarcus
Walker.
Walker, you can.
Hope
You know.
that they get him for at least another year.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I would hope so. But also,
Otherwise, we're
like,
doing this again next year, and then
what
DJ
if-
Moore's
what
on
if
the
they
last
do-
year.
Yeah.
You
of this
know,
deal.
again, I want a blue chip player, and that blue chip player happens to be Odunze.
Right.
Well, then
You
Right.
learn under
You know,
this two
you
great
know, you got
receivers
Keenan
and
Allen for a year, and the next year
he
you're
takes over.
just got
We skipped over Kevin Byard.
Kevin Byard.
You bring in a veteran into a secondary that's, I think, very talented, but very young.
Yeah.
But you bring in a veteran. Now, he's replacing Eddie Jackson, who I don't think his best days are ahead of him by any means. So, in a sense, it was kind of a neutral move, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, Byard had
but a
his
lot cheaper.
worst-
A lot cheaper.
Yeah,
worst year of his career, I think, last year. But he also went
Moved to
from
a
one
disaster.
team to another,
Yeah.
and then during the season they switched scheme. Like it was like
Yeah, it was
They
weird.
switched
And
defensive
they
coordinators, but
coordinators.
kept the
Yeah,
scheme
yeah.
or something.
yeah, but like the play call. I mean, it was
Yeah.
different, right? Like,
It
it
was a
wasn't the
mess.
same. So you have to assume that he would bounce back being here the full year. He is 31, I think, going to be
31, I
32.
think it is. But I mean,
Yeah.
you know, he's all pro in his
What I-
past.
he's had
What I like about him
very
is he's
healthy. Yeah,
he's never
Very
missed a
healthy,
game.
been very healthy.
consistent.
But I feel like he's very consistent. Where I feel like with Eddie Jackson, you have that like hot and cold.
Yeah.
Where with him, he's just going to get you like probably 3 to 5 interceptions a year, and
Right. And I think it's an upgrade from Eddie Jackson, but it probably just still fills that role of the veteran leader
Yeah.
in the defensive backfield, which I think was obviously something they must have been
Mhm.
very interested in
well,
doing.
and that was my biggest
And
concern.
then the contract is very nice too. The contract was
Yes.
7.5.
Seven
and
and
like
a half.
that's basically what we did in our off season, but it was,
Jordan Fuller.
Right.
And it's just like, so they did better than we did.
Yes,
Right.
much better.
Yeah.
Although we couldn't have predicted that
We couldn't
Byard
have
was going to
predicted-
get
yeah,
released.
we didn't know he was available.
under
He
contract.
was under contract
that
he
time.
got
Which-
cut and
By the way, now doesn't count against the
Cap.
compensatory
sorry, yeah,
formula. So it's a good
Yeah.
chance that maybe, I don't know. We'll
I
have
don't
to
think
see.
we're going to come out ahead this year. I don't even know. Is any ex-Bear signed as a free agent?
Darnell Mooney.
Mooney.
He got a nice contract.
Justin
He did get a
Jones.
nice contract.
Justin
Justin
Jones.
Jones signed a huge deal
Yeah,
out in
but
Arizona.
I think they're at 0. When Mooney signed, they
Yeah.
were getting a 4th, but they must have signed somebody after. Maybe Everett was after that, and Everett canceled
Okay.
that out.
I heard they got a 4th, but that poll said, no, send me a future 6th.
You asshole.
All right.
We don't want to do off-season joke.
No more George Pickens.
It's all about those 6 round picks, baby.
right. Rack them up.
Hey, you know who was a 6th round pick? Tom Brady.
There you go. That's right. So he's not drafting Caleb Williams next year.
Not
I'm
till
finding
next
my
year, though.
Brady.
Not till
Finding
next
my
year.
Brady. So where they're at now, obviously quarterback. we believe at that number 1 pick, and we believe it's going to be Caleb Williams. But besides that, how do you feel about this roster going into the draft? We said you don't want to go in the draft with needs, with like glaring needs.
Exactly. I think obviously again, quarterback is the need. I want an actual 3-tech and I want an edge rusher. I'm not saying we're going to get those, and I'm not calling them necessarily needs because I think we can get by with what we have at both positions. But I mean, I still think that defensive line to take that next level from top 10 defense to championship level defense needs a couple more on that defensive line.
If I can get my dream draft, and it won't happen this way, but if I could get my dream draft, it's obviously Caleb Williams at 1. You move down just a little bit from 9, recoup some type of second round pick, get Jared Verse, and he's my top guy. But even if it's like, I think Dallas Turner is going to go higher.
It looks like he's probably going to go to Atlanta.
Yeah.
Seems to be because they got Raheem Morris.
But you got Latu Latu.
Yeah, Latu.
Or Chop Robinson.
Okay.
Like one of those guys. And then use that second round pick on. And I think this would be a fantastic pairing. And I know not everyone's as high on him as I am, but Brendan Rice, and you just bring him in to bring him in with Caleb Williams. Like, I watched more tape on him recently after the Justin Fields trade, and I just love how he constantly is moving with Caleb and like coming back to the ball. And like every time you see Caleb Williams making a play out of nothing, it's always Brendan Rice catching the ball. And I just think that connection right there as your wide receiver 3 is way better.
I'm
than
pretty
Tyler
sure
Scott.
DJ Moore could figure it out too, though.
No, I get that. I'm just saying, like,
no, I know what you're saying.
If you're talking, we need wide receivers.
We do.
If I'm going to nitpick the defensive line and say we need a third wide receiver,
of course.
I mean,
of course, yes.
Yeah.
And in response to center, I'm okay with them not getting a rookie because I also don't like the idea of a rookie snapping the ball to a rookie quarterback.
Agreed.
So at least this way, Shelton can call out protections, you would hope.
Right.
So I don't know how far back in the Hallis Huddle vault we'd have to go, but I think we all kind of agreed that the 2024 season was the one where it's like aspirations should be you're a playoff team.
Mm-hmm.
It's still there.
We think they're set up. Even if you have Caleb Williams at quarterback, this should be a team that should go to the playoffs next year.
Andrew Luck went 11-5.
But we didn't say Super Bowl in 2024.
No.
So you still have next year. We've seen polls pull moves. I mean, look at how Montez Sweat got here. Yeah. Look at how DJ Moore got here. You know, look at how these guys are getting here. And he's building in the draft
next year. Imagine.
That's it, guys. That's when we win. That's when we win it. I want to know. I want to track that pick. I want to know. And if he gets a ring, I don't care what he's doing.
We should.
You know what? It's probably going to be Patrick Scales back or a replacement.
There you go.
They just signed him to a 1-year deal, right? Yeah. We're going to get a long snapper. Of the
that's
title team.
Right there, drafting a long snapper.
We're naming up every episode after whatever guy they pick with that pick. So
I don't off the top of my head recall. I know they have 2 second-round picks in 2025, right? Because they have theirs.
They have Carolina still
next year. Still, yep.
It's also possible that they trade
that
future draft capital to move up into this draft.
Poles has shown a willingness to move up, move back, do what he has to do.
Yeah.
I think they're not going to take only 4 picks, I don't think.
No, they'll end up with the first year he turned 5 into 11.
5 to 11 or something like that. 6 into 11 or whatever.
Yeah. So I know we're kind of towards the end of the episode, but let me just ask then, since he went from 5 to 11 and we all believe he's not going to just sit at 4, does anyone on this panel believe there's something about trading the 1?
Trading down?
Some people are still talking about that as a possibility.
So I know Adam Hogue said this, like Caleb Williams is your option A, right? And if something happens between now and the draft, your option B is another quarterback. That's the only way.
And it's only 1 to 2 to Washington.
Right now, if the draft is today, it's Caleb Williams and bust. Like it's Caleb Williams.
This week is their full visit, right? They have like a full day visit with him this week, if I recall.
They have the
Or is it the pro day first?
Pro day on Thursday, is it? And then they're coming right back to Hallis Hall, I believe.
And they have like
maybe the pro day is Tuesday and Hallis Hall is Thursday, but it's like it's all right after.
Okay.
But they're going to get a lot of information over the next week and a half to 2
Yeah.
weeks, and I think that right there is going to tell you all we need to know.
Okay.
Yeah, but I mean, at the beginning of the offseason or end of the regular season, I was, I knew that Caleb Williams could separate himself as, not just the top quarterback here, but leap into that. But I wasn't sure about it. But now everything that I'm reading, everything that I'm hearing, like I've never been more convinced that he took that leap into this generational class of prospect.
Yeah,
and it's just him or
I like it.
Yeah.
I'm on record. I've always had Marvin Harrison as my top prospect in his own tier. And then I had Joe Alt and Caleb Williams and Drake May in that second tier. I no longer have it that way. My only players in the second tier are Caleb Williams and Joe Alt, and Drake May has dropped down to third. There's just so much in Caleb Williams' game that off script that you can't get from other players in this draft. And that just increases his ceiling so high that I had to change it. But I'm still very high on Drake May. So if something does happen, I would be very comfortable with moving back and landing Drake May. Because I think if you were to move down, you're only
it's 1 to
down
2.
to 2.
But you get
because
other
Caleb wants to separate himself as such a huge prospect, you're getting a monster return even from 1 to 2.
Right.
And
And the Commanders traded Sam Howell and got more draft capital to play with for us. So I think they got a future sixth.
We skipped over that one. So, oh man, it was also that they could.
To answer your question, like truthfully, no, I think there's nothing to the Bears trading off of one. I just don't think.
So moving up, getting more picks is going to have to come either from trading down from 9, trading your later picks, bringing that second from next year into the equation potentially.
As of right now, they have the 1 and 9, and then they have their own third, and they have Philadelphia's fourth. 122, I believe it is.
122. They had to give up 110.
People keep telling me 123, and I don't know where they're getting that from. I think some of the mock draft simulators have it at 123, so that people keep playing with them and seeing 123. It's 122.
Yeah.
From everything that I've seen, that's legit.
Some of the comp picks, maybe people just they got inserted in there a week or two ago, so maybe. They just.
Yeah. But either way. 4 in the top 125.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's probably where it's going to fall off anyway.
So let's see. We're going to do another episode prior to that, of course. And then.
I will be at an NFL draft party for the Thursday night day, so we won't be recording for that. But I'm hoping to start adding more content to our show.
Okay.
That's going to be a little bit different than what we've been doing with the full-length episodes. They're going to be shorter, similar to my Fields Focus ones that I did in the past.
I know the episode started on a downer, but I still think it's a very good time to be a Bears fan.
I wanted to say something similar. I mean, I wanted more than a future 6. The situation we're in right now is just the best situation the Bears have, future looking. Obviously, when they were in the Super Bowl, they were in a great situation, right? But I'm just saying, when you're looking outwards 3 to 5 years or whatever, it's never been better.
Maybe there's a backdoor, on a napkin deal that we don't know about, that we're Omar Khan's going to be all right, in 2026, we're just going to do a pick swap for some stupid reason, and we'll give you
I don't think
a third for a fifth.
I think Omar Khan is very happy,
laughing all the
very
way,
satisfied with himself.
I mean, Khan, he his name's that for a reason, apparently.
Well, you brought up Claypool. After making a bad trade, he then shipped him off and got something back.
Yes.
So
that's what I'm saying. The Claypool trade wasn't as bad.
It wasn't. But all right, that's it.
I got nothing else.
Bear down.
Thanks, guys. Oh, wait. If you're still listening, hit the subscribe button.
What's the opposite of a false start? False end.
Subscribe button so that you can get entered into a free giveaway for a free Chicago Bears, maybe Caleb Williams jersey.
Wait. No, seriously. Keenan Allen's going to wear 13, right?
Oh, yeah. We didn't discuss this.
What's Caleb Williams wearing?
And we got Caleb Williams, and we have Tyler Scott.
I'm quite confident.
Tyler Scott's not in this conversation.
I'm quite confident will end up being Caleb Williams. Williams.
I've heard rumors that he's actually wanting to wear either 0 or 1.
Oh.
I don't think he should wear 1. I don't think that's a good idea.
And I heard that the Chicago
Maybe
Bears don't allow the
6.
number 0 to be worn.
Well, that's stupid because the league just changed that very recently.
Old school,
But I'm saying, how did they have a long-standing?
Last year-
never do it.
last year was the first year that they said no. I guess somebody wanted to wear it and they said no.
Caleb Williams likes to change the way things work.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
but he could be 0. I don't think he should wear 1.
13 is my favorite number, so I'm going 13. Let's go.
I'll bet anything it won't be Tyler Scott.
I'll bet you a future 6th round pick.
100%.
Deal. I'm like Poles. I hear future for 6th. I'm on it. All right. Do we bear down again?
Yeah.
Bear down.
Bear down.